next to Amar Rahman at Fort India.
Hello. Hi, hey Paul. Amar Rahman here from Sports Media India. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So NXT has been doing a great job, signing up young talent since it started. And Parker Boudreaux is the latest name on this list. Even that he has been hyped up as the next big thing and the next Brock Lesnar. Is there any chance you could see him fast-tracked to NXT TV, and what do you make of him in general?
I'm sorry, I missed the name of the person. That the connection is not phenomenal. Who was it that you were asking about?
Parker Boudreaux.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, it's funny that people look at somebody like Parker and they see, oh my God, he looks like Brock Lesnar. So it's like immediately they go, oh, he's the next big thing, and he's got a big personality, and we'll see what he can do. For all of this, you have to be ready to be a performer. Even Brock Lesnar wasn't a guy that as amazing, and Parker is as well, as amazing as an athlete as he is. You got to be trained. You got to know what you're doing. Everything's got to be done safely. So everybody that we bring in the door, you want to succeed to the best of their ability and their capability. All the tools are there for them to use. I say this a lot at the Performance Center, that the generations that came before you had none of these tools. They just get trained and learn from the people that were around them as they were getting to do this. And in some ways they're limited today because of the environment of today. There's no live events, so to speak, right now, and we're working around that, but they didn't have all the other tools at their disposal on a 24/7 basis. So their ability to succeed is increased greatly, but it's what they do with those tools. People have a tendency to want to say, it's this that makes somebody this training or this person or that, reminds me of the saying, success has 1,000 fathers, failure is an orphan, right? Like everybody wants to be a part of that and say, this is what it did and this is how it was and all that stuff. The truth is, you just make those things available to people. What they do with them is up to them. Their success or failure, how hard they work, how driven they are, how willing they are to take no for an answer, unwilling they are to take no for an answer, and everything else that goes with that. So I'm incredibly excited about Parker Boudreaux coming in, Bronson Ricksteiner. We have a lot of people coming in the door, just as I am about people that have been here for a while, like Rick Boots and a lot of people that are in the door that are at the cusp. COVID has slowed that down, but they're right there. When I say the future is bright, that is what I'm talking about, is the ability for those folks that are in those positions, that are in those on-deck positions, to be able to explode into growth and be the next, I don't want to use the next big thing because everybody thinks about Brock, but to be that next star, to be that next megastar, and they want to put it on everybody else's development, but I was there when The Rock became The Rock. The Rock became The Rock. Austin became Austin. It very much so has a lot to do. Yes, they have to be given the opportunity. Yes, they have to be given the platform, but it is the performer.
We'll go next to Miguel Perez at Marca.
Hey, Miguel.
Elimination Chamber pay-per-view this month. I would like to ask you if there has been any point, any plan for an exclusive NXT Elimination Chamber in an NXT TakeOver.
No, we have not. I'm not saying it's not something that we would look at going into the future. That could, anything can happen. But it is not a conversation right now for me. Elimination Chamber is a very WWE and a very Raw, SmackDown centralized event. I wouldn't be opposed to it. At the same point in time, it's nice to be able to have different events for different brands and a different feel, and that that just make the shows different. I love the fact that, NXT has War Games and the Fight Pit and different things that are synonymous with NXT, and that Raw and SmackDown have those with themselves as well. UK has the Heritage Cup and just a different feel to it. So having those distinct differences are wonderful. People love those matches, but it gives you a reason to go to those brands, to be engaged in those brands, and keeping them separate is a good thing.
We'll move next to Jim Barcelona at Miami Herald.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, thank you so much. All right. Just incredible card again. This is going to be very exciting. The women, you mentioned the women now having a really big class coming in. And I know that in the Dusty Classic, they're going to get a women's title shot, as you mentioned. But I am curious, are there more talks or more serious thoughts of adding more titles to the women's division in NXT, whether it be singles and or tag team?
Yeah, look, I think those conversations happen. I think you're always looking to make it everything that it can be. You also want to make sure that you don't water things down. So I'm not a big believer in having, 38 titles in organizations that are just like everybody's constantly just making their way to a different title at any given time. And I don't believe that it's always about those championships. There's a lot of different storytelling. But yeah, that's definitely a thought that's in mind, and we'll see where it goes. I think especially as the women's division has increased in size, people were talking about that a few years ago, but I don't believe that the depth and the size of it was there to warrant it. It's getting to that point now, certainly, where it could handle it. So, yeah, those are conversations that are had a lot, Jim.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll go next to Mike Johnson at PWInsider.com.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. I wanted to ask you about ratings and the way you kind of qualify success at this point, because Nick Khan on the recent earnings call talked about how his vision is that there's still eyeballs on the company, but the eyeballs have shifted to different platforms, and we're in the middle of a lot of shifts that will affect NXT in the next couple of months, in the next year. Peacock, obviously, and the NBC Sports Network shutting down, and hockey possibly going to Wednesday nights in the USA Network. When you look at the overnights versus the +3s, the +7s, what do you quantify as rating success at this point, especially when you see drops at certain points from week to week? NXT's been on the USA Network for about a year and a half now. Like, how do you look at it? How do you measure the success of the ratings, especially now as things have kind of changed and we're at the precipice of more changes for the company in terms of its relationship with NBCU?
Yeah, look, I think Nick said it best in that you're talking about eyeballs and consumption. So when in any of our brands, Raw, SmackDown, NXT is no different. You're looking about how are people consuming the product. The world is changing. In some way you would say to yourself, well, and again, not talking about our industry at all, but you say, well, television consumption is down across the board. Are people just watching less content? No, they're watching more content. People are on their phones 24/7. People are watching content on so many different platforms and streaming devices and apps and everything in between, that to not consider those as platforms that are taking your eyeballs. I think Nick said it in a clarification the other day in an interview that he did of, like, even for him, watching SmackDown, he watched it on an app for quite a few months. Those don't count in television ratings. They count clearly. That's a fan watching the show, if you want to look at it in that manner, but it doesn't count as a television rating. You have to look at them across the board. To just say that in today's world, all that matters is one of those platforms, any given one, is like just naive to all the other platforms. It really is. have to take into consideration everything. You have to take into consideration where people are, when they're watching it, how they're watching it. People want to watch on their times. Appointment television is not the same conversation it was 15 years ago. You know, so we take that into consideration just like everything else. I'm very happy with where we are, but always looking for it to be a lot better. It's that you're never content, never, you know, happy with where it is. You want it to grow, you want it to be more, you want to get more eyeballs. The Peacock thing is another example of that. The opportunity for us to have more eyeballs across the board from so many people in so many different ways is incredible, and that's all part of this engagement and driving people to watch the product when they want to, not and where and when you want them to.
Take our next question from Stephanie Chase at Digital Spy.
Hello, Stephanie.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
I'm very good. Yourself?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for taking the time to talk today. I wanted to ask you about the Royal Rumble match. We saw quite a few women from NXT in there. How did WWE go about choosing these superstars, and how much input did you have in the booking of the actual Women's Royal Rumble match?
So, as far as the booking of the Women's Royal Rumble match and going into it in the lead-in, as far as the actual match itself, I was there day of. A lot of conversations happened around production of it and everything else day of. Prior to that, I really was not involved. But when it comes down to NXT, as they begin to put the Rumble together creatively, there's just an ask. Hey, here's what we think is the right fit for what we could use for women. Here's the right fit for guys. You know, it's the Rumble is, to me, is one of my favorite matches because you're looking at an opportunity all through that match to bring in different things. And so at some point you want the holy crap moment where a talent's coming in that you didn't expect, or the right talent comes in at the right time to pay off a storyline that happens to be happening in that ring, or you want the surprise, or you want the comedy moment, or you want the celebrity moment, or you just want different things that can lead you in multitude of directions. So it's never as simple as, well, we're going to do X women from Raw, X number of women from SmackDown, X number of women from NXT, and or guys. It's never that simple. It's not cookie cutter. And as you morph through the creation of it, it takes 1,000 different directions. And then, of course, in today's world, you have to be ready for anything. So you need to have alternates and backups ready to go, and that know what's going on and what's happening and where they might have to fit the bill if they're needed. So you want to have people there and ready. And again, you're looking at the full match dynamics. So you're talking about over an hour of content. Who is the right fit? Two different. If I was talking about NXT women coming in, and I said, okay, you want to bring in Casey Catanzaro or you want to bring in Raquel Gonzalez? Two totally different women that bring in two totally different dynamics the moment they step out of that curtain. So, it's got to be the right fit at the right time in the right moment and go the right place.